Not a paranormal experience, but a random morning I woke up and checked my phone. There was a photo of me sleeping. I live alone. I woke up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom until I saw a weird painting of a man on the wall. The next day, I realized it was a window. Everyone at my school trip had sleep paralysis and experienced the same thing, including teachers. Not scary, but weird. My older brother and I both had friends sleeping over, and we both woke up our friends by sleep talking. They recorded us and showed us in the morning. We were having a fully coherent conversation with each other. I shared a room with my sister. One night, I was sleeping and suddenly woke up because I felt like someone was watching me. I looked at my sister's bed and saw her lying there watching me. I didn't think much about it and went back to sleep. The next morning, I remembered that she had been staying at my grandma's house the whole week and was only supposed to come back home the next day. It's not really paranormal, but one night I had a dream that a demon was pulling me under my bed, and when I woke up, I was actually stuck under my bed. My reflection in a mirror moved as I was staying still. My sister saw an angel, not the cute humanoid ones, the ones with many eyes and had those orbit thingy, and yet she didn't know what it was. I don't know if this is considered paranormal, but when I was in elementary school, I remember standing outside during recess. I was looking around at everyone and everything and noticed something felt off. I blinked and literally everyone was gone. It was still light out and I went and knocked in the doors. A teacher saw me and got me back in and asked me where I was, and everyone had been looking at me. I said I was outside and everyone disappeared, but she told me to quit lying. Apparently, I was out there for 3 hours. In my mind, I was there with everyone one moment, and in the literal blink of an eye, everyone vanished. When I was 11 years old, I stood face to face with a Neanderthal at my grandmother's house, and no one believes me. I think we all heard at least once our parents calling our names while being home alone. That is so real, I heard that too. Piano started playing in our house at 2 a.m. I was alone that day because my sister was having a sleepover at my friend and my parents had a night out. We sold our piano 5 years ago. It's not scary, but me and my older cousin had the same imaginary friend down to the same clothing, hair, moles, eyes, etc. We found out years later after the fact we both stopped seeing her. I ended up telling my mom about it a couple of years ago, and she had the same imaginary friend along with her youngest sister. Just thought it was interesting. I was pretending to sleep because I was on my DS past my bedtime, and I heard my mom come in my room, and when she did, she kissed my forehead and turned off my lamp. And the next morning, my mom told me she tried getting into my room all night to check on me, and my door was locked the whole time. Not paranormal, but weird. My nana gave me this ring and I lost it one day. About a month later, I was sleeping and in my sleep I heard a voice saying, "Look on the floor, look on the floor." And I immediately woke up. That fuck-ass ring was right on the floor.
Let's read another scary story that was sent to us. This one comes all the way from Auckland, New Zealand. I have a dog named Luna. She is extremely sensitive to noises and is also very sensitive to paranormal activity. We went hiking in a rural part of New Zealand last year in June. It was winter and pretty cold. In addition to Luna and me, my boyfriend, who we'll call Henry, tagged along too. We set off to the hiking trail around 2 p.m. As you know, in winter, the sun sets faster. Around 6 p.m., we finished our hike. It was dark and the trees surrounded us. As we were turning back down the trail, Luna started barking loudly, what she always did when she sensed or heard something amiss. Henry and I ignored it at first and asked Luna to calm down, but she started barking even louder. I knew Luna was serious, so I stopped Henry and told him that we should stay here for a little while longer. But Henry was adamant on leaving. After trying to persuade him for a while, he finally gave in and agreed to stay for a while longer. By this point, it was pitch black and we could barely see a thing except the stars in the sky. Henry was getting fed up and forced me to leave. Luna seemed to have calmed down a bit and was drifting off, so we got up and started walking toward the trail. As we walked for a bit, the atmosphere started feeling a little off. We could see the stars before we started walking, but now it was actually pitch black. I couldn't see my feet. I could tell Henry was getting uncomfortable and jumpy. We stopped to catch our breath for a second. I shined my phone's flashlight, and the path lit up for a brief second before my phone's flashlight turned off. I tried to turn my phone's flashlight on again, but it didn't work. At this point, we were getting jumpy and nervous. Luna seemed to be knocked out cold. It was also getting extremely chilly. We tried to feel around for trees, but the path felt oddly empty. As we rested, we suddenly heard a whining noise in the distance, followed by a loud, screeching scream, and then the weirdest thing happened. At that moment, a flash blinded me, and I found myself laying on the road outside my house. The street was brightly lit, and I heard laughter coming from my neighbor's house. Henry was lying beside me, knocked out. Luna was cuddled in my arms, peacefully sleeping. I was scared out of my wits as I tried to process what happened. How did I just end up in the middle of the road outside my house? I was just in the woods seconds ago. Fast forward to this year, Henry and I still talk about this. It was honestly the weirdest and most disturbing experience of my life. No one believed us, but honestly, if someone told me this, I would roll my eyes too. Are y'all thinking what I'm thinking? Alien abduction. I think that was aliens. That was a freaky story, but I'm so glad that the person who sent me this, their boyfriend, and Luna are all safe. But I do think that maybe they were abducted by aliens.
Hello? This is your mother. Are you there? Are you coming home? Well, you don't know me.
Some sunny day.
Caribbean folk, tell me your mermaid stories. I heard that around the waters of Haiti, you have to be very careful swimming or fishing or boating, and that people who get dragged into the water by mermaids go missing for years and then reappear looking the same age as the day they went missing. So I'm Creole, and I heard stories about how you aren't supposed to wear shiny things or shiny swimwear in the water, sequins, metallic jewelry, etc., because mermaids would think you were giving them an offering, the offering being yourself. They're drawn to humans who display or resemble similar symbols of wealth and beauty. For them, it's displayed by having a mirror, comb, jewelry, or shiny objects. The mermaid doesn't need an invitation to claim what catches her eye. I will never forget it. My grandmother used to tell me so many stories about mermaids. She told us to never go to the ocean around dawn because that's where the mermaids would come out. If you're drowning or lost in the ocean and they rescue you and bring you back, don't ever say thank you. She told us there are underwater cities and people travel there all the time. She told us this one story about an old midwife in our town that got taken underwater by a merman to deliver his wife's baby. I'm Haitian. My aunt got taken for 3 weeks by a mermaid. She came back with a hairbrush and she had special gifts after that. She never went in the ocean again though. I've learned that mermaids don't always appear from the ocean first, that they can wake you from your sleep and usher you to the ocean to release, that they all aren't only half fish, half human depictions. Some of them look fully human, some of them are definitely creatures that don't look human at all, and most of them are shapeshifters. Mami Wata is greatly feared in West Africa for those same reasons. As a Nigerian, if you see fruits being flushed to the shore from the ocean, don't ever touch it. Those are offerings to the water deities. Sometimes you will see people dressed all white at night throwing fruits in the ocean. My uncle's niece from Haiti came to stay with them. The niece told them she married a merman and had 2 children in the water kingdom. She didn't want to stay underwater, so she begged her husband to let her leave. He agreed, but the children had to stay with him. One day they went to the beach. She walks into the water and all the fish surround her. My uncle pulls her out and runs off the beach. They feared her husband would come out and take her back to the water kingdom. She's been landside ever since. Lots of men from Guyana, great-fathers and great-grandfathers especially, have stories of how friends stopped them from walking willingly into the water, claiming that they heard the siren's call and it sounded so beautiful they were entranced. The people around couldn't hear it and they would follow their friends to see where they're going, and once they realized what was happening, they stopped them from going in. My great-grandfather used to warn us about fishing in a jetty because that's where the mermaids keep their babies. We weren't even allowed to even swim there, especially at night. From Trinidad here. My husband's grandmother saw one in a lagoon when she was a teenager. As soon as she spotted it jumped back into the lagoon. Never thought I'd share this story. I was in Aruba for a friend's birthday and we went sea bobbing. My machine was working just fine and the instructor warned us not to wander too far. I was trying to get back to the group and felt a current pulling me, and the sea ground was slowly turning black. Out of nowhere, I felt something grab my leg. It was bluish green and it was pulling me forward. My machine started working again and I saw the group. I know whatever that was saved my life.
This is the scariest story I've ever heard in my life, and I know that because I watched this TikTok video like years ago, and I still remember this story and think about it at least weekly. So let's get into it. There was a trend going around years ago where people were telling their scariest stories that they cannot explain. And I'll be honest, a lot of these stories were paranormal, and it just shocks me because I cannot remember if this woman's video went viral or not, but it was hands down the scariest story that I have heard a part of that whole trend. And if you know what I'm talking about as I'm explaining this video, please tag the person because like I've been scouring the internet for this particular video. So the story starts off with this woman talking about her college home that she split with like multiple roommates. And I don't remember the exact break that they were on in college, but it was her alone in this house for like a long period of time. And she particularly was staying because she had to work her job that was in town. Comes home one night, and because she had been alone in the house, she had shut like all of the extra doors to other rooms that she knew she wouldn't go into. Not super unusual. I did the same thing when I was sharing a house in college. And it's important to note that the attic was split into 2 rooms, one of them being her room. I remember her saying that there was like a latch on the door in her bedroom, and she decided to lock it that night, or she locked it every night. I cannot remember. But when she woke up the next morning, the room directly across the hall in the attic to her was open. And at first she was like, oh, I must have forgotten to close the door that night. So she enters the room for whatever reason and sees that the closet door had also been open. And upon opening the closet, she sees remnants of somebody who had been sitting in the closet for a long period of time. She had no idea who it was. She still has no idea who it was. And every time she thinks about the story, it gives her chills. And I particularly remember her using verbiage in the video that made me feel sick. And it was something along the lines of like, whoever was in that closet was in fact so familiar with the house that they were able to go and sit in a very particular room and be able to watch her, which just adds an additional layer of this story being genuinely terrifying. But yeah, if you know what I'm talking about, maybe you don't, maybe it's too niche and it was so long ago that people don't remember this video, but there is a reason why I remember it, and now you can too.
We can see things as children that adults can't really see, and I'm gonna stick with that opinion for the rest of my life because I have 2 stories that confirm it. Whatever you might think of, like ghosts, paranormal, astral projections, future, I feel like the veil is way more thin for children, and that's why they can literally look what is underneath it. Both stories are about me, and the first story happened when I was 4, and my grandpa died. And we were having like a supper. It's common in Slavic countries to have a supper. So basically, the whole family comes together for a supper that they have after a funeral. And I was not at the funeral because my parents did not want to traumatize me. I was just 4. And I wasn't really like upset or anything. I just didn't really understand what was happening. I did not understand what means dead. Like, what means that your relative is gone. And mind you, my grandpa had his seat at the table. He had a seat like at the head of the table, and this time it was completely empty because he died. And my seat was right next to him. So the whole family sits together, and my grandma told me this story, I forgot to say. So I take my place, and everybody has its own plate, obviously. And little 4-year-old me sees that grandpa does not have a plate because he's dead. But I didn't really understand what that means. So I see that he has no plate. And I ask my grandma, where is the plate for grandpa? And my grandma looks at me and she goes, oh, like, there's no grandpa, you see, like, because she did not want to probably explain to me all of this during a supper. I did not really understand it anyways. So she goes like, there's no grandpa, you see, like, he does not need a plate because he's not there. And I go, but he's there. But he's there. And I look in the void. There's nobody on that seat, on my grandma's seat, right next to me. Nobody's there. But I look at it, and my grandma was, she described it not as I looked at in the air, like staring completely blank, but I was like looking at somebody, but there was nobody. But it seemed like I was looking at the person. If there would be a person, I would look into his face. And I look, and I was like, but he's there. Give him a plate. He's there, and he's gonna be hungry. So, yeah, this is how it was. Then somebody tried to change the topic and whatever. But isn't that really fucking weird? The whole family remembers that. I asked my parents as well. They remember that. So, you decide how and what to think about it. And the second one also comes from my grandma. And don't think that my grandma is a really good person. She's not. She's not. But my grandma was totally not making that up, because the second one I remember, and the first one my parents remember, which are great people, and I always trust them. My grandma used to be a sweet angel, but she turned out to be the most two-faced person that hates the whole family that I absolutely know. And it turned out in 2024 like that, I found out. But at least I know she wasn't lying. So the second story took place when I was around 8 years old. We were sitting in my grandma's cottage house's garden, and we were just talking about something, regular topics. We were just enjoying the garden. And then I go completely blank. My stare goes like blank. I look into the void, and I drop my face. Is completely serious. I was never like that, mind you. I was always like a fun child. I used to never like prank anybody like that. My pranks were fun. They were not creepy. This is not normal behavior for me. And I drop my face in the middle of conversation. I go, Grandma, you're gonna be left alone, staring into nowhere, just, somewhere far away. And my grandma, shocked, she was like, what do you mean? And I repeat, you're gonna be left completely alone in the future. You're gonna be alone. And I had a really serious face, like I was like, zoomed out, unfocused. And then I focus, and I'm back in this reality, and I go and I continue the topic, the conversation that we had before I went absolutely blank, staring into nothing. And it was like a prediction to the future, and I was acting like that did not happen. I just forgot about it. And when my grandma told me when I was like 3 years ago, she told me that, and she was like, what was that? And I was, oh, right, I forgot about it. And I have a memory of this in my head, but it just hazy. Anyways, guess what happened in 2024 when it turned out I overheard her talk with the friend. She was kind of drunk. She was first time drunk in my life. She turned aggressive. And She was gossiping about the whole family, and she turned out she does not love her children. She thinks my mother cheats on my father, and she thinks I'm not my father's daughter because my mother cheated and whatever. Even though I resemble a lot to my father, and obviously my mother is in love with my father, which she just turned to be a complete asshole. And it was insane for me to know this, to find this out, and for my whole family. So my whole family stopped talking to my grandma. It was not just because she was drunk. It was just right after the next morning when she was sober again, she started saying shit into my parents' faces, even her children's faces, my face, everybody's face. She started talking shit. I mean, I think she realized that she has nothing to lose. Everybody already knows that what she thinks because of her drunk talk. So she realized that she does not need to keep that mask on. And she was left alone. And she was left alone as an outcome. She now leaves alone. I tried to visit her and clarify why that happened. Maybe she regrets. Maybe she does not think like that anymore. I gave her the second chance, but she wasted it. She absolutely thinks like that still. And that's why she still is alone. She completely was left alone. And small me, that is fucking scary. Small me knew it. In that garden, sitting and staring into nowhere, I knew somehow that that's gonna happen. I zoomed out, and it was just something possessed me. I don't know how to even call it. I certainly did not know it all the time, but this few seconds, I probably saw the future or something. And my predictions came true eventually. And I don't know how to even explain those stories. Just, it's really fucking weird. That's for sure. And what do you think about it? And maybe you have some stories like that, and you just might share them in a comment.
Let's read some scary possession stories. One of my teachers used to work at a boarding school, and one night during a school movie night, a student left to use the restroom. After a bit of time had gone by, my teacher went to check on her to make sure she was okay. She wasn't. She was huddled in the corner of a shower, foaming at the mouth with bloodshot eyes. My teacher freaked out and called a couple others over, and the chick started spewing out random incoherent things in a really deep voice. Eventually, she snapped out of it and didn't remember a thing. They went to her dorm after, and I guess she had things like "I heart Satan" written on her bunk bed. Pretty creepy. When I was 14, me and my best friend at the time got a Ouija board and decided to play with it a bit. We got into a dark room at my place, lit some candles, and started the bullshit. Another friend of ours knocked on the door as we tried to contact the spirits. We let her in and resumed. This third person kept mocking us as we tried to get the supernatural messages, when, all of a sudden, she passed out. We thought she was joking, but then she opened her eyes and started to talk with a voice that wasn't hers. It was damn scary, but we still thought she could be playing with us. Then she laughed, a horrible laughter, and started to say things that happened to me that I had never said to anyone, and same for my best friend. Candles started flickering, and the flames went a bit too high for my skeptical being not to shiver. My best friend ran out of my place straight to her neighbor's house, who was a Condomblaise mother of saint. When the woman came to my place and saw our friend, she gasped and told us to help bringing the girl to her place. We did so, but not before getting some scratches by not allowing her to get undressed in daylight, calling to some men that were looking at us as we marched towards the Holy Mother's place. Once there, she locked herself with the girl in a room and told us to wait outside. I don't know what happened, but after a couple of hours, our friend came out, very tired, and didn't remember anything after we let her in and started to play with the Ouija board. The Mother of Saint told us not to play with what we can't control. The most intriguing thing is the fact that she knew all of those secret things about me and my best friend. It was scary for two 14-year-old girls, that's for sure. I have never known what to make of this. The high school I went to was a religious private school. Senior year, it was traditional for the entire senior class to go on a religious retreat up in this remote resort in the mountains with a few teachers. The point of the retreat was to grow closer to each other as a class and also to find God, experience spirituality. They took away our phones and forbade us from using any form of the internet or communication with the outside world. Then they made us go through a series of soul-bearing exercises and speeches and whatnot. Honestly, pretty cheesy stuff, not that exciting. On the third day of the retreat, however, the entire grade is in the main hall doing an hour of silent prayer that was pretty much like meditation, but we were supposed to be communicating with God. All of a sudden, there's a huge crash, and everyone looks over to see a girl toppled over onto the floor. As everyone stares, she starts writhing around on the ground and screaming, but not screaming in like pain. The voice that she was screaming was in a really strange, deep voice and didn't sound like her at all. Someone yelled, "She's seizing." I remember that because there was a girl in our class who was known to have epileptic seizures and would do it in assembly pretty frequently, but it wasn't the same girl. Then she stood up and started yelling in tongues. Her eyes were rolled up and her head kept twitching back and forth. She started to run all around the room, yelling in an unintelligible gibberish language. And every now and then she would run at the cross in the middle of the room and then run back, screaming and crying. At first, I honestly thought this was a dumb high school prank to freak everyone out. But if that was what it was, she took it way too far. The teachers tried to calm her down, but she just kept screaming in this weird language. She started pulling on her hair, so one of the teachers called an ambulance. But we all knew it would take a while for them to get to this remote retreat. Another teacher tried to take her by the shoulders, and she dug her nails into his arm really hard and just kept screaming. It took several more minutes to calm her down. The teachers actually evacuated us from the room, and then she just went quiet. They took that girl away that night, and she never came back to school after the retreat was over. I wasn't friends with her friends, so I don't know if they knew what really happened.
The first demon I ever saw was living under the baptistry at my parents' church, and everyone told me it was God telling me not to be that way. Hey there, welcome back to Pink Hair Ain't Scared. I'm Marge, your spooky drag storyteller. Let's dive in to another scary story. Our church was old even then. Painted white walls outside, stained glass that was a little cloudy, red carpet that was faded and worn flat down the center aisle. The hymnals always smelled like they'd been left in a basement. The fellowship hall downstairs smelled like coffee, bleach, mildew, and green beans. I was maybe 12, old enough to know that I was different, but not old enough to say how. Just that people at church already looked at me too long. The boys could be loud and rough and stupid, and that was normal. If I crossed my legs wrong or talked with my hands too much, suddenly the deacons needed to pray over me. One Sunday, after evening service, my mom sent me downstairs to get more paper cups from the fellowship hall kitchen. Nobody liked going down there alone. The basement lights were those long, buzzing fluorescent ones, but only about half of them worked. Past the kitchen, there was a little back hallway that led to the furnace room, a storage closet, and the stairs up behind the baptistry. That part always smelled the worst, like wet wood and dust. I heard something moving up there. It sounded heavy and slow, like somebody kneeling and then standing. I remember thinking one of the deacons was up there, draining the baptistry. I went up the little side steps and pushed open the small door. The room behind the baptistry was barely a room, more like a crawl space with pipes. The wood beams were black, covered in mildew. There was insulation hanging down in strips. And there was something there, not in the tank itself, but under it, curled in the dark space beneath the baptistry, where there should not have been room for anything bigger than a toolbox. At first, I thought it was a person folded up wrong. Then it lifted its head. It had skin like soaked paper, gray but shiny in places, like it had just been pulled from a creek. No hair, eyes too small and too far apart, reflecting the light. Its mouth was open, stretched so wide I could see the gums all the way back, but the teeth weren't human teeth. They were thin, crowded together, and jagged like shards and splinters of bone jammed into the gums. It was smiling at me. I know how stupid this sounds, but it was smiling exactly the way church people smiled when they were about to say something cruel really gently. Its arms were long, One hand pressed flat to the wood over its head, and the fingers kept flexing, slow and careful, like it was feeling the vibrations of people walking in the sanctuary above us. Then it spoke, not too loud, almost kindly. It said, in my dad's voice, "There you are." I ran so hard I hit the kitchen doorway with my shoulder and dropped cups everywhere. I was screaming, full panic. My parents and half the church came downstairs, and of course there was nothing there. My dad whipped open the door behind the baptistry and turned on the light like he was proving a point. My mother dragged me outside and made me stop carrying on. She said there are no demons in a church because demons cannot live in God's house. My father said Satan can put ideas into a child's head, especially a rebellious one. Then he asked me, right there in the parking lot, what I'd been feeling convicted about. That's the part I never got over. Not that they didn't believe me, that they believed me just enough to make it my fault. We never left that church. I was in that building for 8 more years. Every revival, every Easter pageant, every youth group lock-in. I never went near those back stairs again. But sometimes during altar call, I could hear water moving in the baptistry when it was empty. I'm 32 now. My parents still go there. They still say I was dramatic. They still say no evil thing could dwell in a sanctuary. Last month, my mom mailed me a bunch of old photos that she found while cleaning out the fellowship hall closet. At the bottom was a picture from my baptism. I'm in the water at 12 years old, eyes red from crying, my father's hand on my back. And under the surface, just behind my legs, there's a face looking up at the camera, smiling with all those teeth. Do you have a scary story you'd like to send in? My email is down below. Hope to hear from you soon, and stay tuned for another scary story.
This is by far the scariest story I've ever heard in my entire life. So when I was in high school, I used to do group therapy, and there's specifically this one boy who had a giant laceration across his throat. And I guess his father passed away, and his mom, sister, and him were so grief-stricken that they decided to use a Ouija board to try to talk to him. And I guess the experience went fine, whatever. Well, one day his mom and his sister were out at the house, and he said, I want to use the Ouija board by myself. I really want to talk to my dad. Well, he starts to use the Ouija board by himself, and he's like a younger kid while he's doing this. Something came through the board that was so evil. It overtook his mind, his body, everything. And he says, like, the last thing he remembers is whatever the entity was that overtook him, literally getting him to slice his neck open with a knife. Like, it was terrifying. And of course, no doctors or physicians believed him, so they threw him in an institution, right? But I'll tell you who did believe him. I did. And so did my, the woman who ran the group therapy. You know why? Because she was a shaman. She was a shaman. She was like, holy fuck. And I was like, holy fuck.
Hope y'all are ready for this one. I'm not even sure that I'm ready to tell it, but for quick back reference, my name is Dana. I grew up on a farm here in Central Florida, surrounded by woods. Lots of unexplainable things happened to me over the course of growing up on this farm and in those woods. I have put a playlist on my page labeled Spooky. You can start there, or if you like scary stories, have a seat. You're gonna want to hear this one. So my dad usually would ask me to ride the fence line in the evening time to make sure that there was no breaks in the fence, and especially would want me to do it like on Fridays, so that we would have the weekend if we needed to do anything. But he was a stickler about making sure that we checked the fence line to make sure there was no breaks in the fence. We have lots of cattle. We didn't want them getting out and so forth. I'm riding the fence line. I get to the back side of the property, and there is a literal missing piece to our fence. It was as if somebody had cut a perfect piece out of our fence and just took it. It was just gone. We have mostly barbed wire fencing, so it was very odd looking that there was fence here, and nothing right here in this like missing spot. It was very odd, but I just figured, okay, something tore it up. I was trying to kind of make sense of how it was missing. It didn't, because most of the time you could see the barbed wire stretched or cut or something. This was literally missing. I saw nothing of this missing barbed wire that was just gone. I noticed out of the corner of my eye that the cows are kind of all bunched up in the corner of the fence line. They are facing towards me. They're not blinking. They are completely still. And it's almost like they're not looking at me. They are looking past me, okay? Like towards the house, the barn, all of that. And that is when I hear this voice, "Help me." It was coming from the barn, so I race back. My heart is pounding because I'm like, that's weird. I don't remember my dad telling me anybody was coming, but it sounded like somebody needed help. So I'm racing to get back to the barn, and I noticed that the barn doors are open. Normally, the barn doors were always closed. I made sure, and everybody makes sure to make that they are closed, locked, all of it, gates are locked, all of these things, when we go and check the farm. The barn doors were open. Didn't think too much about it either, because I'm like, well, maybe my dad went in there to do something this morning and just forgot to close them back. As I get up to the barn door opening, I hear the voice again, "Help me." I call out as I walk into the barn, "Hey, is anybody there?" Silence. No sound. Nothing. Next thing I know, I hear it again. It says, "Help me." And this time it is closer, but not in the barn. It's like in the horse stalls. So I'm like, oh my gosh. I walk out of the barn. My heart is literally pounding. I mean, I can feel it in my throat, okay? And if you know, you get scared, you feel that. Walking over to that stall, and I see this thing crouched in the corner. The stall was dark. I see this thing crouched in the corner of the stall, facing the stall wall. And I'm like, hey, I'm just here to help. I'm not even believing my eyes at this point. This thing literally stands up, and it is too tall to be a dog. It is too wrong to be anything else that I even recognize. It's still facing the stall wall at this point. When it heard me say, hey, I'm just here to help, it turns around. There is no face on this thing. It is like skin stretched tightly over bone. It tilts its head sideways and then smiles. I don't know how, but I could just feel it. When this thing stood up, it was clear as day, in my dad's voice, saying, why did you come out here? I bolted to the house, ran out of that stall towards the house. I'm booking it across the yard, get in the house, slam the door, lock it. And then this thing is pounding on the door in my dad's voice, clear as day, literal seconds later when I am in that house, let me in, let me in. And then I'm standing there realizing this thing never left the barn. What the heck? I look out of one of the windows. I don't see any of the cows. Now I see a larger piece of fence that is completely missing. I don't see this creature anymore at all. I am looking frantically, peeking through every single window that I can find in the house to try and see where this thing went. And the next thing I know, the lights turn on. I woke up. It was morning. I was having a nightmare. This is just one of the many nightmares that I can recall having when I was younger. I used to have them all the time so bad that my parents would have to literally sit with me at nighttime for the longest time so that I could actually fall asleep, because I would sit there until morning sometimes with my eyes wide open and could not go to sleep because of these nightmares.